Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me know if you can hear me. My audio is good. Let me know if everything sounds all right and you can hear me loud and clear. We'll be getting started here shortly. All right, Foxmouth, we will. I appreciate it. I think I figured out what I did. I think it was thanks, Steve 3PO. Um, it was a technical, or no, it was a user error on my side was the problem. 2 weeks ago, last week was a technical issue. I had to reset my router, so I actually did that the before I got started here. So I will go ahead and throw out any questions that you guys have, and we will get started. So, as the questions are coming in, here is a video that I am working on. Will be releasing soon. I posted in a couple boating groups what were some of the most overrated options that that are out there, and I got some pretty good ones. I was going to go over a few of mine, the ones that I think are unnecessary, and that when I was selling boats, these are options that people got to have it. People that didn't know boats were blown away by them. Like, oh my God, I can't believe that's got a blank on it. And then when I would take a trade in on a boat that, Bill Durbin, I'll get to your question here in just a second. But would find that when they traded their boats in, that these options didn't get used, or they were like, oh, it was great for the first couple weeks, but then we didn't use it. So that's what's coming out. Just to give you a little sneak peek, one of mine is the head. I know there's some people that absolutely have to have a head, but freshwater lake boats, I guess that's freshwater, huh? 9 out of 10 came in, and it was just a storage compartment. They hadn't used the head. Maybe they never used the head, but it was an option that people were just blown away on. So, all right. So throw your questions in the chat. I want to thank people that that contributed. There's a little dollar sign in the chat on YouTube anyway. That if you get some value, is appreciated. We had a couple do it last week, which is very much appreciated. So, all right. So, Bill, I just purchased my first boat, 2018. Inboard motor has a complete drains all the water out of the motor. Is this a good substitute for winterization? Bill, where are you located? Let me see if you've already said you're in Louisville, Kentucky. Okay. So I believe yes, in Louisville, and I'll make sure I know Louisville well. It is. Here's when I like that drain system is when you're warm enough that you're not going to get a really hard freeze, and you're going to run your boat deeper into the season, Bill. So you got to make sure you follow all of the instructions. Turn the knobs, open the valves, take out the drain plugs. You've got to do all of that properly, but that's going to get the water out. And that's going to do one thing in winterization. What that's going to do is it's going to protect you from that water freezing and expanding and cracking your block, causing damage somewhere. In somewhere like I'm in just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. In my area, I'm going to assume that's similar to the Louisville, Kentucky. You might be a little bit further north. I don't know my geography very well, but you're pretty close to our climate, which means that we're not going to get any super hard freezes. And if you're like me, you're going to run deeper into the season, and you're going to start earlier in the season. So the boat's not sitting up from, if you're in Nebraska where I grew up, All right, we're gonna delete that and block that guy. That is unnecessary here. So you've got the hard freezes, and Labor Day, you put it away and you don't get it out until Memorial Day. So you've got September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. So you've got 8 months where that boat's sitting. In that case, I would put that marine grade antifreeze in it, just so that in case there was any water that didn't drain out completely, the boat was sitting at the wrong angle. And sometimes that can happen. The boat's not at the right angle and everything doesn't flow out. It gets a hard freeze. It really can cause some damage. The other thing that's involved in winterization, Bill, is putting it up for the summer. So winterization, the basics is drain the water out. You're protected from freeze damage. But winterization is also treating the boat for being put away for a long period of time. Now, the longer that time, the more important this is. The shorter that time, the less important this is. So, treating your fuel. Well, you're putting summer fuel in it, and you're putting summer fuel in it, which they have a different blend on fuel in the summer, in the fall, in the winter, in the spring. Has something to do with the heat and the temperatures out. So you've got summer fuel in it. It's going to sit through the winter. And it's going to degrade over time. The octane comes down over time in gasoline. And then the other thing that's going to happen is if it's got any ethanol, if you can't find straight 100% gasoline, it can get water in it. So that ethanol absorbs water. It's kind of like a sponge to water because of the open venting system on a marine fuel system. It's going to suck in that moisture potentially. In Louisville, you got the river. It's probably a fairly moist area, and it can get water in the fuel. So you need to treat that and be prepared. So I would fill my tank either all the way up. So when I say all the way up, like 90% full. You never want to fill a fuel tank 100% full, especially in cooler weather, because then it's going to expand when it gets hot. And if you're 99% full and expands a little bit, you're going to have gas spraying all over the place. But you want about 90% full, so there's only a small area where moisture can get in. You limit it, or you have it completely empty. If depending on the boat that you bought, Bill, it could be you're real close to empty, put it away empty, and then you don't have much fuel to worry about to attract the moisture. So one of those extremes, but not half full. The next part is it's a 2018, so it's probably a fuel injected engine. Steve, we'll be getting to you here in just a second, and Ben as well. The next thing that you want to do, and I've got videos on stern drives and outboards on winterization. I go into this in detail, but the other thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that the internal components of your engine are lubricated. It's another way we're treating the fuel. You treat it, and then you run that engine to get that fuel all the way through the system, and it's got some properties that are protecting for the engine sitting for a period of time. If it's a carbureted engine, I doubt if yours is, Bill, but if it's a carbureted engine, you can fog the engine, and that's gonna lubricate all those internal components of your carburetor. So yes, the drain is great for that part, but there's other aspects to putting your boat up for a long period of time. So depending on how late in the season you're going to run, hey, if you're going to go into November and you're going to pull it out in February, well, top off the fuel, and you're probably okay. If you're putting it away right after Labor Day and you're not getting it out till Memorial Day, now I'm going to go further down. Watch out for rodents. Put it away from the weather as well, so that your boat's not out in the environment. All right, so hopefully that answers that. Let's go see what Ben Babcock has to say. 7-year, 1998 Yamaha Exciter 270 owner. Like to move to a 23-25 Cuddy, probably around 2000. Can you talk about best brands for quality in the area? All right, so here is, Ben, my opinion on the brand question when you're talking about a boat that's 20 years old. Which brands to stay away from? I would watch my video. What? Excuse me. Oh, excuse me, I've got an itchy throat. Apologize. So Ben, what I'm going to recommend is you watch my video, boats not to buy. There's two of them. There's a part one and a part two. Watch that. But when you're talking about a boat that's 20 years old or so, it's not the brand that's as important, because here's the thing. If it was going to break, it's already broken. At that point, it's more important about how well it's been maintained, how well it's been taken care of. What is the floor solid? Is the upholstery in good condition? Is that transom solid? Tapping, which we talk about in the First Time Boat Buyer Academy, tapping the um, um, come on. There we go. First Time Boat Buyer Academy, we talk about it. But tapping the hull, tapping the transom, tapping around through hull fittings with your screwdriver, and you take a little screwdriver like this and you just tap on it. Now what you want to hear is a nice kind of tink tink where it's going to bounce back off that hard gel coat. What you don't want to hear is a thud. A thud means that there's water gotten in there, and now you've got rot happening from the inside out, and now you've got a huge problem. A Cobalt, which is one of the best boats in that category in those years, a Cobalt with water intrusion because somebody didn't seal up a screw where they put a new transducer, or something happened and water was getting in. I would take a Bayliner over that over that over that Cobalt every day of the week. So it's about the condition of that particular boat and how well they maintained it. So ask the questions about, hey, do you have the service records? When's the last time you did your service? When's the last time you changed your impeller? When's the last time you changed your gear lube? Stick your head down in the engine compartment, stick your head down in the ski locker, stick your head and pull up all of the cushions in that cuddy cabin and look at every little detail. Tap the outside, pull compression on that engine, check the lower unit, check the drive there, crack open the gear oil and see if there's any metal shavings in there. See if there's any frothy milkshake looking kind of brown consistency. There's a couple videos that I talk about that. The used, Ben, if you watch the how to buy a used bow rider or the used cruiser video, that would apply to your Cuddy Cat situation. And those are the things that are going to be super, super important. There's none that I would stay away from, because you're going to be able to see. There's not a brand I would say don't buy this, because you're going to be able to see the cheap stuff because it's already shown itself. If it's cheap, there's already going to be spider cracking in the gel coat. If that's a concern for you and your budget allows you to buy a nicer boat, then that's what you'll do. But I wouldn't shy away from any boat that's 20 years old, that's in good running condition and looks great, because guess what? It's built well. It's survived 20 years, and you're going to be happy with it if you inspect it properly. We talk about it in detail in the First Time Boat Buyers Academy. You can go watch those videos, how to buy a used cruiser or a used bow rider or a used deck boat, and you can get a really good sense. And since you're already a boater already, Ben, you certainly will get value from the First Time Boat Buyer Academy. I guarantee it. There's a money back guarantee on all of my stuff. But go watch those videos and you'll be on the right track and invest in that program if you feel it's going to be more valuable. All right, been looking for a boat for 10 years. Wow. What boat to avoid to good platform? Okay. No, Bill, you don't need antifreeze. I'm assuming I answered that, but you don't need antifreeze. Okay, Steve, a couple questions. So, and again, in the First Time Boat Buyer Academy, we talk about this, but it's there's not a right and a wrong boat. There's a right and a wrong boat for you, and there's a right and a wrong boat for the type of boating that you're looking for. So, my questions are, what are you going to do 80% of the time? That's what you need to ask yourself. And then my questions for you would be, what bodies of water you're going to boat on? Are you going to keep it in the water? Are you going to trailer it? Where are you going to store it? Who's going to be out with you? What does your perfect day on the water look like? So, Steve 3PO, tell me the answers to those questions, and then I can give you a better answer to what's the right platform, because there's, for me, a tri-tune with the 150 or a 200, awesome boat for a lot of people. I've got kids. I boat on a lake. I'm a family boater. My girls like to tube and do a little bit of wakeboard. We like to just anchor out, turn on George Strait and Johnny Cash, listen to some music, have a few beers, and enjoy ourselves. For other people, they want to fish. The wrong platform. For other people, they're going offshore. The wrong platform. For other people, they want some more speed, and they say, I don't want a stupid pontoon. That's for old people. Fine, it's not the right platform. So throw those answers out for me, Steve, and I'll get back to your question if it takes a while to get these answers in. And until then, Steve, we'll come back to you if you put those answers in the comments. Ellis, new Tri-Tune 200 Merc, 15 hours, drain lower unit, replace the oil as part of the winterization. Only reason I can think is to make sure no water in. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to crack that little drain plug at the bottom of the foot. So you've got on that Merc, you've got the skeg, and then it kind of comes up to that round area, the bullet. On the bottom side of that, typically on the it's going to be on the starboard side. I'm trying to picture us in my head, and take it's going to be a big screw like that big. Get not a little teeny tiny screwdriver like this, but get one of those big thick screwdrivers, flathead, and just crack it a little bit. That is a magnet. That screw, Ellis, is actually a magnet. And just have a rag there, crack it open until a little bit comes out, and then wipe it with your finger. Look for any metal shavings, because they'll kind of come off that magnet a little bit if there's anything going on. If it looks good, I would tighten it back up, and I wouldn't worry about changing that lower unit for the first 15 hours. I don't like to go more than 2 years without changing that. But if you just got the boat, it's brand new, just check, make sure there's no shavings in there, make sure it's good. And look, I don't think Mercury has a 20-hour on the gear lube. I think, and they may not even have it on the engine oil anymore. I think they're going to 100-hour service is their first recommended service, but or time. So it's either hours or time elapsed, no matter how much you use the boat. So I think you're going to be good with that, Ellis, on yours, and you'll be okay. All right. So Steve, if you're out there, I'll come back to you. Yeah. So 100 hours on the engine oil, I would crack that just in the off chance that there's something weird going on. It can happen. And but these new motors now, I was at IBEX, the International Boat Builders Expo down in Tampa. I guess it's 2 weeks ago now, and they had all the engine manufacturers there, and I talked to somebody from all of them: Volvo, Mercury, Suzuki, Honda, Yamaha, all of them. And the tolerances that they have, um, the tight tolerances they have, and the manufacturing processes are so dialed in, so computerized, so damn precise now that it's just everybody builds a rock solid engine after they've been building it for a couple of years. They've worked all the kinks out, and that Mercury 200 is certainly that. So you're welcome. You're welcome on that. So, all right. So Steve 3PO hasn't popped back in. Maybe he's watching the how to buy a used boat video. So hopefully that's what happened. This cough is driving me crazy. All right. So we got anybody else out there? Brock. All right, let's see what Brock has to say. Came from the bass boat world, bought a Sportsman Masters. Wondering if you would recommend running a motor tote. I'm not. When you say a motor tote, are you talking about a like a transom saver? I tell me if that's the same thing. I think it is, but I just want to make sure I've got the right language. Brock. If you are talking a transom saver, um, you know, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't think it's necessary either. What I would recommend is, depending how it sits in your trailer, I would prop it all the way up. Yeah. Okay. Um, Yeah, it's the transom on that Sportsman is so much more robust and than a bass boat. A 20-foot bass boat, you're thinking you're maybe 2 feet on the transom. It's just there's not that much structure there to support it. So you support that big, would you have a 150, 200, 300 on some of those bass boats that you got all that weight pulling on that tiny transom. I wouldn't be concerned about it on that Sportsman. Um, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to have it halfway up. You want to make sure you've got it all the way up. And if there's a lock on it that you can put in, I don't know if Yamaha, or you didn't say if that was a Yamaha. I'm guessing it's a Yamaha on that. But to support it, because it can kind of put pressure on those rams, the hydraulic trim rams. So you do have to protect those. But if you've got it all the way up, you're in pretty good shape there. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it on that Sportsman. All right, Steve. Um, Still be happy to come back to you. Yeah, Yamaha 300. So yeah, it's a big, heavy motor, but like I said, with that big, if you look at Sportsman's transoms, and if you saw my center console review video, I think I show. I mean, it's a good 2 inches thick. So my motor, 71 hours, Mercury 4.3. Um, Previous owner just changed the oil and filter. Should I go ahead and replace the gear lube impeller before winter? Bill, I am a big believer in changing that impeller, and uh, I'll say this: oil, gear lube, filter, and test load the batteries or change out the batteries when I get a new used boat. Here's why: unless the guy has service records, because it's real easy for me to say, oh yeah, I did my service on this boat last year. You think they did everything and all they did was change the oil. If they haven't done it, yes, I would absolutely. Bill, thank you very much, I appreciate that. um I appreciate that contribution. But the impeller, absolutely. The gear oil, absolutely. I would change that. The boat is now going on 4 years old. It's a 2018, I think you said. If he has never changed that impeller, it's due. If he has never done the gear lube, it's due. And you're going to be. You might pull out the impeller and like, oh man, it had another year left in it. But for $100 impeller, and if you do the work yourself, that's it. I don't even think it's that much. Or for $400, your tech will do oil, gear lube, and pull the prop. Make sure that depending on the type of water you boat in, pull that prop. Make sure there's no fishing line that's wrapped around that prop and maybe getting into that seal, to where the gear lube is on that propeller spline, the shaft, the propeller shaft. You'll be glad you did those little things to be preemptive. It's one of the biggest mistakes that boaters make, in my opinion, is they stretch out their service too long and they say, but I only put 15 hours on it. I only put 50 hours on it. I'm going to stretch it out. And then, what happens is things don't get lubricated, because when they're in there, they're also greasing things. And Steve, if you can answer my question, I'd be happy to go deeper for you. But thank you for that contribution. I definitely appreciate it. Um, um, but it's that skipping the maintenance to save. And I understand it's not cheap to do the maintenance on some of these engines, especially when you get 100-hour, 300-hour services, 500-hour services, and you're like, but they're just inspecting things. Yeah, but if that impeller is going bad and it starts not pumping as much water, your motor overheats. Or it's happened to my brother. He stretched out. He's like, I can get by with another year. Well, first time out of the season, they ran the boat. His peller disintegrated and started, what happens? Well, it goes right up into the engine, started smoking. They thought they had a fire on the boat. Luckily, it was just the impeller kind of burning up because it wasn't pulling in water now. Everybody jumped in the water. They got the fire extinguisher out, and that's not how you want to spend a day, especially your first time out of the season. And luckily, he was very experienced at the time. Just stretched it a little too far, and it caught up with them. Fortunately, he didn't have pieces of that rubber impeller going up in the system, which now is a major, major concern. So I always err on the side of, hey, just get it done, and you'll be happy. All right, John Driscoll. I've got a 2020 Godfrey. Been having a lot of cavitation issues. What would you recommend I check? Okay, so who did Godfrey hang the motor? And you may or may not know this. Did Godfrey rig and hang the motor and put the prop on, or give the prop with the boat, or did the dealer hang the motor and put the prop on? They probably put the prop on, but did they choose the prop? And here's why I ask, is because there could be a couple of things going on. One, they could have hung the motor on the wrong hole. If it was done at the factory, they didn't. They hang motors on that boat probably 10 times a day. And a 90 on a 20-footer is a common setup. There's no way at the factory. I shouldn't say that, because they've got some COVID workers that may not be as experienced. I would be utterly shocked if they hung it on the wrong hole at the factory. If it was done at the dealer, I doubt it, but it could be. The second thing I would look at is, what is the actual prop that you're running? So is it a 3-blade? Is it a 4-blade? And then what situations is it cavitating? If you dealer hung the motor out of the prop, I changed the prop to a stainless. Okay, so you went stainless on a 90. And I assume you changed the prop because it was cavitating already. So I'm going to make that assumption. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But so I would look at what conditions is it cavitating? Is it cavitating when you have 5 people sitting in the bow and you're at the helm? Well, now it's riding at an attitude of bow low, stern high, which could be popping that motor out, which isn't a good thing. So you can move some weight to the back. Is it cavitating when you take a sharp turn? Well, okay, then that just might be 3-blade during turns going faster at speeds. John, is your weight in the do you have a lot of weight in the bow where you feel like maybe you're riding at an attitude of bow down? That would be then a weight distribution thing. And then it's a decision of, well, I um I like our passengers like to run up front. Steve, I'll get to you here right next. Okay. Um, we like to have everybody sit up in the bow. Nobody wants to sit in the back. They want to get the sun. They want to be out of the bimini. Now it's a matter of, okay, now maybe I would drop it down a little bit for that specific reason, drop the motor down. But I think people spend a lot of time moving motors holes when they haven't evaluated the issue enough yet. Um, the other thing is, are you do you have any trim in the motor when it's cavitating, especially if you've got weight in the bow? If you're making a tight turn, you got to trim that baby all the way down. Yeah, I was thinking that same thing. New York Unix guru. Well, uni. I don't know. Um, but I was thinking that same thing as is the aluminum prop might be a better setup on that 90, but I don't think that's part of the cavitation issue. I think it could be the attitude. It could be, do you have trim in it? And it could be that if you're wide open throttle and all that stuff. Um, so I got it right. Interesting. Um, New York Unix guru. Um, oh, Unix. Okay, Unix as in the technology. Got it. Got it. Got it. Um, so those would be the couple of things to check, John, on that prop. So go out for a day and just see what happens. Mess with the trim, see where you're, move the weight around if that could be an issue, and then go back to your dealer, go back to your Godfrey dealer, and say, hey, listen, we're we're having a far from genius. We're having issues with cavitation. Here's the situations. Here's some video. What can we do about it? Maybe we move to a 4-blade prop. With a 90, I don't think that's probably the solution. Maybe there's something going on. Maybe they did pull it in the wrong hole and they can drop it down based on the way that you run the boat and the way you load the boat. um and go out and just test those couple of things and have them bring, it's a pain, but sometimes this is the only way to figure it out, is get have them bring several props that they would recommend, and I'm gonna recommend to you to go with the what did you say? um Yamaha, okay. So, I would recommend going with the Yamaha prop, the Yamaha branded prop, a and just test some different things out to see if you can, if you can resolve that issue, but it's a trial and an error. It's a trial and an error thing, so, um, stainless after I added lifting strakes, 36. Me and the boat thought it would help with performance. It's here's the thing is the stainless, and that's a hell of a speed with the 90, and those lifting strakes. That's incredible. Um, the Okay, so all right, so here's the other thing that I'm going to ask is, you added the lifting strakes. Were the lifting strakes factory lifting strakes, and where were they placed? Because what could be happening is those lifting strakes are placed in a way where they're causing a little bit of whitewater, and now, as that aeration gets back to the prop, it's causing some problems there. Again, there's a whole lot of variables that you got to think about when you're looking at that. Yeah, the prop pitch does absolutely matter. um, eh, I'm making the assumption that your wide open throttle RPMs matches the wide open throttle for a Yamaha 90, which I'm guessing is probably, I don't know if it's 6,000 or not, but it's probably close around there. So I would look at that. But yeah, a lot of different things to test, and those lifting strakes is, John. Did you get them from the dealer for that Godfrey? And then were they placed exactly right? Because that whitewater could certainly be part of it. All of that matters. Okay, so we're gonna get back to Steve. He got deleted. I'm in Michigan, inland lakes. Okay, St. Clair. St. Clair is a big lake, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. I heard it was rated one of the best party cove lakes I just heard that the other day. My wife likes nice and smooth. Pontoon is big to get into small places. Um, okay, so smooth ride, big lake. Um, okay, yeah. So I would, yeah, big parties. Tell me a little bit more about what you want to do, Steve, and who you're going to do them with. So the number of people. Do you have kids? Is it just going to be you and your wife? When you say getting into small places, um, tell me about what you mean there. And John, the those lifting strakes, it may be something about those, and maybe talk to the dealer and say, hey, listen, I put these lifting strakes on. Those lifting strakes are actually lifting you out of the water, so maybe they set it at the right hole for a boat without lifting strakes, and maybe you do need to drop down one because that lifting strake is now getting you more up on top of the water and on plane. That very well could be a resolution to your issue, getting that motor down deeper in the water. And then check that wide open throttle. Again, I don't know what it is on a 90, but it'll say in your manual what your max wide open throttle is, and that can um, that seems, I didn't think it was over 6,000, but it might be. It might be, but check that. All right. So Steve, you tell me, continue typing, and tell me some more about your what your time on the water looks like. Um, for smooth, and a little bit about your budget, Steve, as well. So for smooth, all right. I don't think there's much smoother on a lake than a 22, 24 foot tri-tune. Um, if you're going to fish, and that's what you're talking about, getting in small areas, I get it. That's then it's not the right platform. But for your wife's desire for smooth, um, tri-tune, 22, 24 foot tri-tune, can't beat it. She's not gonna find a more comfortable ride. John, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. So next, I would say a big bow rider. Um, so a bow rider or deck boat, something with a nice deep V, a good amount of dead rise that's going to slice through some of that chop. Okay. If you're slicing through that chop, it's going to be a better, more comfortable ride for her. A nice deep boat, where there's a lot of freeboard, there's a lot of side to it, that high gunnels, which is the side of the boat. That's going to give her, it's going to give you a little bit more weight on the boat, but it's going to give her that feeling of being down in the boat, and being um, a little bit more secure on it. Um, so those would be, okay, wife, kids, coming in the future, Tritune, yep. 10 to 14K. Okay, so you're gonna be hard pressed to get a Tritune in that budget amount, but you can certainly get a pontoon, a 22, 24 foot with a 90. You could certainly get that. That's gonna be enough to put, kids are coming. You're not gonna go with a 90. Now, John Driscoll, he added the lifting strakes, and he's getting 36 on his. Most 90s you're going to get maybe high 20s, low 30s with a light load. I think John said that he was at 36 with just himself, but you put a little bit more weight on a regular pontoon, and it's going to slow your speed down pretty significantly. So, figure high 20s, with the 90. That's going to be enough. My 10-year-old, um, can easily ski, wakeboard, even slalom behind a boat with a 90. So it's going to have plenty of ability to do the things that, especially if kids are coming in the future, it's a nice stable platform. I personally, when I was selling boats, I had the opportunity to take out any boats that we had. It's one of the reasons why I have so much experience with so many different boats, is because we had a 30-foot cruiser out there. I could take that. We had a 25 a 250 SLX was a boat I loved to take out with it when it was just my wife and I love that boat. It's one of my favorite boats on the market. Um, but once we had kids, I wouldn't take anything but a pontoon, because the pontoons, I could close the gates, I could roll the stroller on, I could bring them on in a car seat when they got to be toddler age and they were eating Cheerios and bobbling around in their life jacket. I knew they weren't gonna flip over the edge. It was a safe platform where I could relax a little bit more, that I didn't have to be watching my girls the whole time. And for me, the 90 was fast enough. Yeah, 23 with 8 people on, is what John's saying. So it's, that's 13 miles an hour dropping with, I don't want to insult any of John's friends, but I'm going to call them 150 pounds each. So that's what, 800, 1,200 pounds. So you add that and you drop 13 miles an hour with a pontoon. So your speed will come down as you put more and more weight on it. But with just, you and your wife, a cooler, and a couple of friends, that's a great platform. The Tri-Tune's a little bit smoother. If you go watch my video, the difference between pontoons and tri-tunes, I talk about it in several of my pontoon videos, but that tri-tune just gives you extra buoyancy, which means that the waves are, where's my camera here? The waves are coming here and you're glancing over the top because you've got so much buoyancy. A pontoon's going to chug through them a little bit more, but if you use your trim the right way, you get your nose up, it's still a super smooth, a super stable platform. No, lifting strakes don't help with the weight in the front. Lifting strakes is just to get it on plane on that. But I think that pontoon could be a great option. But for 10 to 14,000, you can also get, I would assume, up in that Michigan area where there's a lot of boats, you could get a deck boat or a bow rider, a 2000, 2003, 2005, maybe, 22-foot deck boat is also going to give you a pretty nice ride. If you could get up to the 24, it's a little bit more expensive to maintain because you've got that stern drive in Michigan. You got to winterize. It's a little bit more in depth to work on because of that stern drive system. Now you've got it's a different system that you got to think about. But that's another, I think, one of the greatest values in boating in that $10,000 to $20,000 range is a used fiberglass bow rider or deck boat, because there's a ton of them out there in that 15-20 year range. That's going to get you in that price range and give you a pretty comfortable ride. But I still think the tri-tune or pontoon is going to give you the smoothest setup. And then I would move into the bow rider or the deck boat and just go out and look at Boat Trader, look on Craigslist in your area, go look at used pontoon boats for sale. Brian, a guy I know, owns that site, and just start looking, see what the prices are. Know that right now in this market, know that there are some people that have their boats listed for such a ridiculous price that they're never going to sell it for that. So if you see something that's way out of the line from everything else, it's just a weird time in the market right now. But if you start watching it now, you start doing some research, like I talk about in the First Time Boat Buyer Academy, is go and start looking at some of these boats. Go to a couple dealerships, spend the weekend with your wife, go to some dealerships, talk to some local people with no plan on buying, just information gathering, see what's out there. Walk in marinas, go to some marinas where you think you'd want a boat, talk to some people. A smile and a 12-pack of beer very well could get you a ride on somebody's boat, or a very, very valuable conversation. and I think you'll start settling in. But those are a couple of things that I would think about, Steve. So hopefully that is helpful for you. Let me see. I had a couple up here. Um, Stainless, John's, Mario. Okay. Robalo 20 Yami. Sell it for a little more. Should I take advantage of the market? Hold on to what seems to be. Listen, Mario, if it's your perfect boat, um, keep it, man. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about these people that are saying they're going to cash out is one, it's kind of like the housing market. A bunch of people in my neighborhood sold their houses because the market was so high, but they all had to live somewhere, so they all bought a house in the market that was crazy high. They moved up, they certainly moved up, and they got an extra 50, 75 grand for their house, which is awesome. But I assure you, they paid an extra 50, 75 grand or more for their next house. And I think unless you want to go for a period of time without a boat, or you're just going to flip your profit into another, what sounds, he said it's my perfect boat. If you were like, you know what, that 222 EX, I don't know if they make that for sure, but that next size up, man, if I just had that little more space, it would be perfect. Then I could see it. Then I could see you're almost trading up, and you're not taking that haircut on your new boat purchase. You're actually stepping up and getting it. But if you're like, I would get the same exact boat, and I don't want to go a season without a boat, because I guarantee you that if you place your order today, you're going to miss part of next season. There's still hundreds of container ships stacked up outside of ports all around this country. I just read an article the other day that are starting to get the trains are starting to get behind on shipping containers in, up to 2 weeks delayed, and there's still over 100 container ships off the coast of LA and Savannah and Seattle and wherever else they come in here. There's going to be more delays in the manufacturing process, and there's still labor issues. COVID is still an unknown, and people are getting sick and having to quarantine and be out of work for 2 weeks, and that's slowing down production. And guess what? They're quality workers that have been there 20 years. So now they got to bring a guy that's been in for 1 year or 6 months, and he's never built a boat before. And now the quality issues, you're starting to see it here and there. I wouldn't personally take the chance, but there is a lot of personal what's right for you in that question. So, but that's my take. I think if it's a perfect boat, man, ride it out and just enjoy it. Forget about making 5 grand, because you're going to pay an extra 5 grand or more in the next one. And guess what? 2022 models, there's a reason you're making 5 grand more, because 2022 models are even higher. And yeah, so that's my take. That's my take on that. I think you get it. Yeah, Brock. So Brock ordered his 2 months ago, and he's not getting his till March. So now you're 2 months later, and so you're not getting yours March. You wouldn't get yours until May, best case scenario. And Brock, I hate to say this to you, but Brock doesn't have his yet. There's still boats that have been delivery date of August, and I'm hearing people saying, I haven't got my boat yet, or my boat was supposed to be here in September and I'm getting it next week. So that March date, Brock, for you, I hope it's money. I hope you get it. But Mario, there's a big risk that you're taking. Great insight, kids. Gotta find you. Keep listening. Hey, Steve, you're very welcome. You are certainly very welcome. There's a ton of videos on the channel. Get out. Just, I myself, this is just sort of a little side project that's turned into something that I really, really enjoy, and the relationships and these lives now that we're doing. I think it's going to be a business that I can turn it into with some things that we're looking at. But people tell me they binge watch my videos. I'm like, that's for Netflix. That's for listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, and that's for that's for people that are really freaking good at what they do. But I'm glad that you get value. I'm glad that I'm able to help folks make smarter decisions, or at least more educated decisions. And I'm grateful for that. So kind of what I felt. Yeah. Good. Mario, I don't want, and this is what drives me crazy is like, oh, I'm going to cash out and then I'm going to miss boating, or people that say, I've got people on the channel that say all the time, you're an idiot if you buy a boat right now. Like, no, if you go into this knowing that you're going to pay a little bit of a premium right now, for the boat that you want, but if your kids are 10 years old and 8 and 10 or 10 and 12, this market's not going away for another year or two. These prices aren't going away for another year or two. Um, it is You could lose that time. I Somebody was on, I think last week's live, or as a comment, and their kids were like 15 and 17, and I'm like, listen, that 17-year-old's going to college soon. I know, it's a podcast I did that's coming out, and he was like, we want to do this, and my daughter's 15. Like, if you wait, she's going to be 17 and gone before you know it, and now she's off to college. So, um, Bill, you're gonna love them. You're gonna love if you did the first time boat buyer academy, or the best boat captain on the water. I am I I am very, very proud of this best boat captain on the water training. I don't feel too bad for me, but I spent 3 10-hour days on the water filming just the pontoon version, and I did similar for the V Haul single engine version. And it is it is impacting a lot of people. They've gotten a lot better at handling their boat, and I'm super, super proud of how well that turned out. For me, just having the idea after hearing people in my first time boat buyer academy, people getting value out of it, and then having people say, we're struggling operating our boat, um, struggling operating our boat, and oh, good. That's a good sign. If you invest in one program and then you buy the boat and then you buy the other program, I know I'm delivering a ton of value. So, but I've heard from people that it's making an impact, and I had the idea, and within a month I had it all edited and ready for people to go. I gave it to a handful of people to make sure I wasn't insane, that this was going to be usable and valuable. And yeah, see, Bill, let me ask you this: with the first time boat buyer academy, there's a negotiation section. Bill, you might be the guy that emailed me. Did you buy the red crown line? The red and white crown line, Bill, is that you? But there is step number 5, I think it is, and there's 7 savvy steps in the first time boat buyer academy, where I go from, hey, the first couple of things you should think about if you're even considering buying a boat, having these conversations with the people that are involved, and then um yeah, okay. So yeah, Bill, that was you. So Bill bought a beautiful, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but Bill bought a beautiful red and white crown line. I think he said it was a 2018. And so in the email, he said, he's like, I asked the question in the negotiation section, and he said the guy's face just kind of went blank. Like, he's like, oh crap, I don't know what to do. And he gave him a $1,500 discount. And this was just, I mean, I got that email, I think last week. So he just bought this boat, and everybody's saying, you can't negotiate. You can't negotiate. Well, the reality is, it's harder to negotiate for sure. You're not going to get as big of a discount, for sure, but people are always going to ask more for their boat than what they would gladly take. And he asked this question. You know, a simple question, and we got a $1,500 discount. Yeah, what would you take for this boat? So the guy said, "Hey, the boat's, you know, whatever. I don't know how much it was." And he said he asked him, what would you take for the boat?" And he said the guy's face just went like, "Huh?" And now you put them on the spot, and of course they know in their mind most people are not trained salespeople. Even trained salespeople get kind of thrown by this question. And so you ask that and you're like, "Hey, what would you take for the boat?" And now in their head, they know I'm asking 50, but I'd be happy to sell it for 48. I mean, I left some room for negotiating. And now you say 48, and now you just save 2 grand. And now you start inspecting the boat and you find some other things and you ask some more questions. You know, "Hey, is that the best you can do?" As you get further down the process, after you point it out, "Well, it's got a nick here and it's got a ding there, and man, it's yellow. I really yellow's okay, but I would rather have it be red." And now they're like, "Oh shoot, you know, I know there's more people, but this guy's here." And now you say, you know, "Is that the best you can do?" And they're like, "Oh, I can give you another $500 off." And you know, now the less than $100 it costs for the first time Boat Buyer Academy, you get all that and you get the savings. And it's I, I appreciate the people that tell me it's super valuable, because I put my 5+ years of sales in there. My over a decade in the industry working with dealers and manufacturers, and just I've been through this process hundreds and hundreds of times as a buyer and a seller, and so hopefully it's valuable to you folks out there. Mark, I appreciate that. Mark was on the podcast. Oh shoot, I don't know how many months ago, but he's down in Texas with a beautiful Harris. Let's see if I get this right. Solstice with a 300. I think I shortchanged you 250 horsepower last time, Mark. But Mark and I are trying to catch up to do a video interview for his, talking about his experience with the best boat captain on the water training. He got the pontoon version, and I really I appreciate the friendship with Mark. It's interesting that somebody I've never met, that you're like, "Yeah, that guy's awesome." You know, he sent me pictures. I think his picture was in the newsletter a couple weeks ago, sitting out, feet, you know, the picture of down to your feet down to the sandbar with all the other boats anchored out. And you know, I'm in the Carolinas, so it's still nice here. Was probably will get another trip out, maybe 2 in October. And there's a Christmas boat parade. There's a Christmas boat parade that just came out. I think it's December 11th, on one of the lakes here. And if hey, listen, if you guys have a Christmas boat parade in your area, um, bundle up if you need to, get some hot chocolate, and take the kids out. It's a fun time, especially if the weather's decent. It's a really cool experience that bring some friends with you, introduce them to the boating lifestyle. You will enjoy it. Plan. Don't If you've never boated at night before, make sure you have a plan. If you've never loaded your boat up at night before, make sure that you're competent and comfortable loading your boat. Make sure that the boat ramp you go to has good lighting. If you're coming back to your marina, you know, you'll be okay. And but it's a great time. It's a great time. Um, and yeah, I also, when I started this channel, I was just focused on boat buyers, right? So boat buyer secret weapon. It was just all about buying a boat, that process, the information I knew people didn't know. Created the Boat Buyers Academy. People started buying boats and still kept watching. I'm like, "Oh, I need to create some content for boat owners." You know, the what you need to know. And if you've got other questions, feel free to throw them out there. I've got, I'll probably stay on for another couple minutes and ramble if you guys don't mind listening. But if you got questions, throw them out there. I'd be happy to answer. So I started doing more boat owner content, and it's surprising to me the number of boat owners that still enjoy this content, that get it. You know, Mark's owned a boat for over a year now. Other people I know that listen to the channel own a boat for under a year or over a year, and they still enjoy it. So yeah, Charleston Boat Parade. I've not been to that one, but I know some people that have been in it, and that's a cool one as well. Knowing my shrink wraps, think about doing it myself, nervous about the fire and the plastic. Okay, so, yeah, I have never done shrink wrap myself. I know people that have done it, and, you know, the ones that are serious about it, they've got that big, long propane torch that they use, you know, and you gotta be real careful. You know, I would what I would do is I would wrap Ellis, I would get a little bit extra wrap, and I would kinda practice on something. I don't know, you could probably use just a hand torch, but, it's a great way to put your boat away. I'm not sure, Ellis, where you're located, but yeah, it's a great way to protect it, um, but, uh but, yeah, if you don't have anybody there that does it, there's some equipment that they use, specifically that big long propane torch with the big long handle to get, you know, depending on the type of boat you've got. If you've got a T-top or a bimmy that you don't lay down, yeah, Wichita, Kansas, where you've got all that weather, you're in a barn, you got critters there. If you know if you're near a cornfield somewhere. I grew up in Nebraska, so I know you're never too far away from a cornfield, even if you're in the city. Um, but yeah, that shrink wrap is a great option. And you might, if you're near Wichita or in Wichita, Ellis, I would think somebody around there does it. I would think that that if you call around, you could find somebody. Maybe post in a really, man. Okay, all right. So it's not cheap to do it either. It's not cheap to do it for sure. But hey, if you know this is a boat that we're going to keep, and I don't know what it would cost to get the roll of plastic and all that, but if you know every year you're going to do it, it might be worth the investment. To I can do it myself. Get some of that white plastic tape, so as you tape on the holes and you know, I'm not the right guy to do a video on this, but I'm sure somebody out there has done one. And if not, you know what? Maybe I could talk to my friend Max, who's a technician here in the Carolinas that does it. He's probably, I know, matter of fact, I saw a post that he was wrapping boats the other day. Maybe I'll try to catch up with him and do a how to wrap your boat yourself video. Yeah, so if you're out in the country near Salina, you certainly know about critters. So you definitely know about critters. So Ellis, let me do that. I'll shoot Max an email tomorrow and say, hey, bud, when you doing your next winterization and wrap, and would you mind if I videoed you and kind of give some tips on, you know, I bet he's done hundreds of them, and create a video and see if I can help you out there. No promises, but we'll try it. All right. So if no other questions have rolled in, this has been a fun one. Um, can I just turn on my outboard and my slip to get some fuel moving through the lines? So take it out. No, you're fine. Here's what when you put your fuel stabilizer in, um, just crank the boat up, let it idle at the dock. You're fine. You're just getting that treatment through the fuel, and then just rock your boat back and forth a little bit so it sloshes around and kind of mixes it up. That's the only reason you would need to take the boat out, is it sloshes it around just naturally for you because of the wind and the waves and the current and whatever rocking your boat around. But just rock your boat around a little bit after you put it in. um, Crank it up, let it run for 10-15 minutes, and you'll be fine. You'll be okay. And Mark, for you out there, is if you do that once a month, you know, go out to the boat, you're going to check your dock lines, because you're not there as much as you are in the summertime. Maybe there's a month where, hey, November it gets busy, December you get busy, you're not out there. Just run out, check it, crank it up for 10-15 minutes. That gets all the oil running through the system, that gets the fuel treatment back running through, and you'll be good. Yep, I will be back. I'm really enjoying these. Starting at 8:30 is easier. I don't have to rush my daughter's bedtime, and so I think we're going to stick with 8:30 on Sundays for a while. And I may even I may throw. I put a question out on the YouTube community about doing it on Wednesday at 8:30 as well, because I really I do enjoy these. I think it's just fun to talk boats. So with that, we are going to wrap it up. Thank you. Thank you for those that contributed. Thank you for those that have invested in my programs. And Steve, thank you very much. Sorry that your comment got deleted. I deleted one that was a racist dumbass comment that I won't stand for on my channel. I won't stand for any of that, but I don't delete any other comments, but I will delete that stuff because I'm just not having it. And Bill, thank you for the contribution, and thank you for investing in my programs, the First Time Boat Buyer Academy and the Best Boat Captain on the Water. It means a lot to me. It helps. It means I can make this into a business and do even more stuff to provide even more value. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys, and we will see you next week, Sunday, 8:30. And take care, everybody. Have a good night.